Billionaire hands credit card to struggling single mom for 24 hours. Her heartbreaking choice brings him to tears. Hello my new viewers, we really actually spent a lot of effort scripting this video. Encourage our team by subscribing to this video. Don't forget to like and comment. I really appreciate your willingness to watch our videos. Let's go back to the video. The grocery store fluorescent lights hummed overhead as Sebastian Stewart stood in the organic wine aisle, his $1,000 Italian loafers silent against the scuffed linoleum floor. He wasn't there for wine. He was there watching people, studying them like specimens under glass, searching for something he'd lost years ago. Hope, maybe, or just proof that humanity wasn't completely rotten. At 42, Sebastian had everything money could buy and nothing it couldn't. 3 homes across 2 continents. A tech empire worth $8.7 billion. Cars he'd never driven. Art he'd never really seen. And a heart so calloused by betrayal, manipulation, and greed that he'd forgotten what it felt like to be moved by anything real. His last relationship ended when he discovered his fiancée had been secretly recording their conversations, planning to sell a tell-all book. His college roommate, whom he'd trusted with a VP position, embezzled $2 million. Even the charity he'd funded was exposed for funneling donations into the director's offshore accounts. Everyone wanted something. Everyone took. Everyone lied. That's when the idea struck him. A social experiment. A final test before he gave up entirely. He'd give his credit card, his Black American Express with no spending limit, to a complete stranger for exactly 24 hours. He'd watch what they did with unlimited wealth. Would they prove him right? Would they drain his accounts on sports cars and designer bags and champagne? Or would they surprise him? He expected disappointment. He'd bet his fortune on it. That's when he saw her. At the end of aisle 7, a woman knelt beside a shopping cart, her faded denim jacket worn thin at the elbows. 2 children flanked her. A girl around 7 with dark braids and a hole in her pink sneaker, and a smaller boy, maybe 5, clutching a stuffed dinosaur missing one eye. The woman was counting coins in her palm, her lips moving silently as she calculated. In her cart, a box of generic pasta, 2 cans of soup, a gallon of milk, and a loaf of white bread. The little girl tugged her mother's sleeve. "Mommy, can we get the strawberries? Please." The woman's face crumpled for just a second. A flash of pure anguish so raw that Sebastian felt it in his chest. Then she smiled, and it was the saddest, most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. "Not this week, baby. But soon, I promise. We'll get the biggest, reddest strawberries you've ever seen." The girl nodded, trying to be brave. The boy hugged his dinosaur tighter. The woman stood, put back 1 can of soup, and headed toward the register with her meager cart. Something cracked inside Sebastian's chest. Something he thought had fossilized years ago. He made his decision. He followed the woman outside into the Chicago winter evening, where snow was just beginning to fall. She was loading her children into a rusted sedan with a cracked windshield when Sebastian approached, his hand already reaching for his wallet. "Excuse me," he said, his voice rough with an emotion he couldn't name. "I have a proposition for you." The woman turned, her hazel eyes wary but kind. "I'm sorry, I don't have any cash to spare." "No," Sebastian interrupted, pulling out his black card. "I want to give you this." Willa Morgan's first instinct was to grab her children and run. Strange men didn't approach women in parking lots with good intentions. But something about this man stopped her. Maybe it was the expensive coat that looked out of place in this neighborhood. Maybe it was the genuine confusion in his storm-gray eyes, as if he himself didn't quite understand what he was doing. "I don't want trouble," Willa said quietly, positioning herself between the man and her car, where Emma and Lucas watched through the fogged window. "I'm not here to cause any." The man held up his hands, and that's when Willa noticed them, soft, uncalloused, with a watch that probably cost more than her annual rent. "My name is Sebastian Stewart. I'm conducting an experiment of sorts. I want to give you my credit card for 24 hours. Willa blinked. "Your credit card?" "Yes. For 24 hours. Exactly." Sebastian shifted his weight, looking almost nervous. A billionaire nervous. The absurdity wasn't lost on Willa. No spending limit. Buy whatever you want. I just want to see what you do with it. This had to be a scam. Or a prank. Willa had seen those YouTube videos where rich people pretended to be generous, then humiliated people for clicks. She glanced at the parking lot, searching for hidden cameras. I know how this sounds, Sebastian continued, but I promise you it's legitimate. I'll give you my card, and tomorrow at this exact time we'll meet back here. You return the card and that's it. Whatever you spend, you keep. No strings. Why me? Willa's voice cracked. She was too tired for games. Too exhausted from double shifts at the diner. From medical bills piling up. From smiling at her babies when all she wanted to do was scream at the unfairness of it all. Sebastian looked at her. Really looked at her. And Willa felt suddenly uncomfortably seen. Because you put back that can of soup. Because you lied to your daughter about strawberries and made it sound like a promise, not a failure. Because you look like someone who's forgotten what it feels like to catch a break. Tears burned behind Willa's eyes. She refused to let them fall. Is this legal? She asked. Completely. What if I max it out? I hope you do. Sebastian pulled out his wallet, extracted the black card, and held it out. 24 hours. Tomorrow, 6 o'clock, right here. Will you take it? Willa stared at the card. At this impossible, absurd, potentially life-changing piece of plastic. She thought about Emma's shoes with the hole. Lucas's dinosaur that he loved because they couldn't afford new toys. The eviction notice she'd hidden under her mattress. The hospital bills she'd been ignoring. She thought about the growing pain in her abdomen that she'd been pretending didn't exist. Slowly, Willa reached out and took the card. 24 hours, she whispered. Sebastian nodded. 24 hours. Willa sat in her car for 10 minutes after Sebastian walked away, just staring at the black card in her trembling hands. Emma and Lucas had fallen asleep in the back seat, exhausted from another long day at their grandmother's apartment while Willa worked. The card felt heavy. Impossible. Like a grenade with a pulled pin. She started the car, it coughed to life on the third try, and drove home to their studio apartment in Pilsen, one of Chicago's working-class neighborhoods. The radiator clanked and hissed, barely heating the small space. She laid the kids on the pull-out couch they all shared and tucked them under the thin blankets, kissing their foreheads. Then she sat at the wobbly kitchen table and pulled out her phone, searching Sebastian Stewart. Her breath caught. Forbes, Fortune, TechCrunch. Page after page confirmed it. Sebastian Stewart, tech mogul, founder of Stewart Innovations, estimated net worth $8.7 billion. Photos showed him at galas in boardrooms shaking hands with presidents. And here she was, in her apartment that smelled like mildew and the neighbors cooking, holding his credit card. Willa's mind raced. She could fix everything. The car, the rent, the clothes. Food, real food, not pasta for the 5th night in a row. She could buy Emma new shoes and Lucas the toy dinosaurs he dreamed about. She could. Her phone buzzed. A text from her mother. How'd the doctor appointment go? Willa's stomach dropped. She'd canceled it. Again. The 3rd time this month. Because the $200 copay might as well have been $2 million, and she knew what the tests would show. She'd felt the lump. Noticed the weight loss she couldn't afford. Seen the blood she pretended was nothing. But she couldn't think about that. Not when Emma needed glasses she couldn't read without. Not when Lucas's asthma inhaler was almost empty. Not when they were 3 days from eviction. Willa wiped her eyes and made a decision. She'd use the card. But she'd be smart about it. Strategic. She'd spend what she needed, only what she needed, to stabilize their lives. Nothing extravagant. Nothing wasteful. Just enough to breathe. She pulled out a notebook and started making a list, her handwriting shaky. Pay rent. 3 months to have a buffer. Fix the car. Kids' shoes and winter coats. Groceries. Real groceries. Emma's glasses. Lucas's inhaler. Maybe, just maybe, one nice dinner for the 3 of them. She looked at the list. Felt selfish even writing it. Then she added one more item. Mrs. Chen's electric bill. Their elderly neighbor had mentioned her electricity might be shut off. Willa had wanted to help but couldn't spare even $20. Now she could. Tomorrow, Willa decided she'd start small. She'd be careful. She'd prove to Sebastian Stewart, and maybe to herself, that some people could be trusted with something precious. Even if she didn't quite trust herself yet. Willa woke at 5:30, as she always did. But this time her first thought wasn't dread. She looked at the black cards sitting on the table, catching the early morning light filtering through their one window. For a moment, she wondered if she'd dreamed it all. She checked her phone. No missed calls from Sebastian saying it was a mistake. No police at her door. The card was real. After getting the kids ready, Emma in her patched jeans, Lucas in a sweater 2 sizes too big, Willa dropped them at her mother's apartment in Bridgeport. Her mother, Rosa, was a housekeeper barely making ends meet herself, but she never complained about watching her grandchildren. "You look different today," Rosa said, studying Willa's face. "Something good happen? Maybe?" Willa whispered, afraid to say it out loud. "I'll tell you later." Her first stop was the Chicago Community Electric office on South Ashland Avenue. Mrs. Chen, their 78-year-old neighbor, had confided that she owed $340 and had until Friday to pay or lose power. In the middle of a Chicago winter, that was a death sentence. Willa's hands shook as she approached the counter. "I need to pay an outstanding bill for Pearl Chun, apartment 2B at 1847 West Cullerton." The clerk, a tired woman with kind eyes, typed on her computer. "You're not listed as authorized." "I know. I'm a friend. She's elderly and I want to help." The woman studied Willa for a long moment, then nodded. "The balance is $340.16. Willa handed over the black card, her heart hammering. What if it didn't work? What if Sebastian had already canceled it, and this was some cruel joke? The machine beeped. "Approved. Receipt?" the clerk asked. "No," Willa said quickly. "Can you not tell her who paid?" "I don't want her to know." The woman's expression softened. "You're a good person. The world needs more people like you." Willa left before the tears could fall. She sat in her car, gripping the steering wheel, overwhelmed. $340 gone, and Sebastian's account probably didn't even notice. To him, it was pocket change. To Mrs. Chun, it was warmth, life, dignity. Next, Willa drove to a Walmart in Cicero. She moved through the aisles like someone in a dream, placing items in her cart. Winter coats for Emma and Lucas, new shoes for both kids, socks without holes, a week's worth of real groceries. Chicken, fresh vegetables, fruit, bread that wasn't day old. At the toy aisle, she paused. Lucas had been asking for a dinosaur set for months. It was $24.99. Before yesterday, that might as well have been $1,000. Now, she put it in the cart, then added a book Emma had been wanting. At checkout, the total came to $386.47. Willa swiped the card, still half expecting rejection. Approved. She loaded everything into her trunk, then sat in the parking lot and cried. Not from sadness, but from the overwhelming weight of relief. For one day, maybe two, her children wouldn't go without. For one moment, she wasn't drowning. By noon, Willa had paid her rent. Not just the late amount, but 3 months in advance. Her landlord, a gruff man named Jimmy who'd been surprisingly patient, looked at her with shock when she handed him the check. "You hit the lottery or something?" he asked. "Something like that," Willa replied. Walking out of the rental office, she felt lighter. 3 months. 90 days without the terror of eviction, without lying awake calculating how to stretch nothing into something. She was passing the Veterans Affairs office on West Roosevelt Road when she saw him, an older black man in a worn army jacket, arguing with a clerk through the glass partition. "I get my disability check next week," he was saying, his voice strained with desperation. "I just need a few more days. Please." "I'm sorry, sir. The cutoff notice went out 30 days ago. Without payment by Friday, your benefits will be suspended until the account is settled." Willa stopped. She shouldn't listen. This wasn't her business. She had her own problems, her own children to think about. She had maybe 18 hours left with the card. But she thought about her father, who'd served in Iraq and come home broken, who died when she was 15 because the VA hospital had a 6-month wait for mental health services. She walked inside. "Excuse me," she said. "How much does he owe?" The veteran turned, his weathered face creased with confusion. The clerk raised her eyebrows. "Ma'am, this isn't." "How much?" Willa repeated, her voice firmer than she felt. $780. The clerk said slowly. Willa pulled out the black card. "I'll pay it." The veteran stared at her. "Young lady, you don't have to." "I know," Willa said softly, "but I want to. Thank you for your service." The man's eyes filled with tears. "God bless you. God bless you. I don't even know your name." "You don't need to," Willa said, and walked out before she started crying again. She drove aimlessly for a while, her mind spinning. The card had $780 less than it started with, a fraction of what Sebastian probably spent on lunch. But to that veteran it was everything. Heat, food, dignity. Willa found herself at Harbor House, a homeless shelter on the south side where she'd volunteered before Lucas was born. She walked in and found Monica, the director, drowning in paperwork in her cramped office. "Willa Morgan," Monica said, standing to hug her. "Long time. How are those babies? Growing too fast." Willa hesitated, then asked, "What do you need most right now?" Monica laughed sadly. "About $1 million and a miracle. But realistically, winter coats for the kids. We've got 17 children here and maybe 8 coats that fit." "Why?" Willa pulled out her phone and found a wholesale supplier online. "How about 50 coats? All sizes." Monica's face went white. "Willa, that's... Consider it an early Christmas." By 4 in the afternoon, Willa had spent $12,847.63 of Sebastian's money. She knew the exact amount because she'd been tracking every purchase in her notebook with shaking hands, still unable to believe any of this was real. She'd paid Mrs. Chen's electric bill, bought groceries and clothes for her kids, paid her rent 3 months ahead, covered the veteran's debt, ordered 50 winter coats for Harbor House, stopped at a mechanic shop in Bridgeport and paid $1,200 to fix her car's transmission. No more praying it would start each morning. Now she sat in the parking lot of Northwestern Memorial Hospital, staring at the building where she'd been told to return for her biopsy 3 months ago. The appointment she'd canceled. And the one after that. And the one after that. Her phone showed 4 missed calls from Dr. Reeves's office. Persistent because they knew. Because the ultrasound had shown something, and the blood work had raised flags, and every medical professional she'd seen had used that careful, gentle voice that meant bad news was coming. Willa could use Sebastian's card right now to walk inside and schedule everything she'd been avoiding. The tests, the imaging, the consultation, whatever came next. Her hand reached for the door handle. Then her phone rang. Her mother. "Mija, Lucas's inhaler ran out. He had a coughing fit, but he's okay now. But we need to get his prescription filled." Willa's chest tightened. Not from fear, but from a love so fierce it hurt. "I'll get it right now. Is he breathing okay?" Yes. Don't panic. But soon. Okay?" 15 minutes. Willa put the hospital in her rearview mirror and drove to the Walgreens on Cermak Road. Lucas's inhaler without insurance was $287. She paid it without hesitation. Then she stood in the pharmacy section, staring at the bottles of vitamins and supplements, and made a decision that broke her own heart. She wouldn't use Sebastian's card for her medical care. Not when it could feed hungry children. Not when it could keep elderly neighbors warm. Not when it could give her own babies a cushion, some safety, some protection from the world that had chewed Willa up and was now coming for them. If she spent Sebastian's money on treatment, it would take tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands. For herself, for someone who might not even survive. But she could give Emma and Lucas something better. Security, a chance. Willa left the hospital behind and drove to a Toyota dealership in Joliet. Her car was fixed now, but it wouldn't last another winter. With the card, She could buy something reliable, something that would get Emma to school and Lucas to his doctor's appointments after Willa was gone. She found a used but solid RAV4, 3 years old, 47,000 miles. $18,500. I'll take it, she said. Her children would be okay. That's what mattered. She'd make sure they'd be okay. Willa had 6 hours left. She picked up Emma and Lucas from her mother's apartment and drove them around Chicago in their new-to-them RAV4, the kids squealing with delight at the working heater and the backup camera. "Mommy, we're fancy now," Lucas announced, hugging his new dinosaur set in the back seat. "Very fancy," Willa agreed, her throat tight with emotion she couldn't name. Joy, grief, gratitude, terror. All of it mixed together into something that felt like flying and falling at the same time. They stopped for hot chocolate at a small cafe in Logan Square. The first time in 6 months Willa had bought anything that wasn't absolutely necessary. Emma got whipped cream on her nose and laughed so hard she snorted. Lucas argued that dinosaurs definitely drank hot chocolate if they had the chance. These were the moments Willa was buying. These ordinary, precious, ephemeral moments of childhood that she might not be there to see much longer. As they left the cafe, Willa noticed a young couple standing outside a bakery, the woman crying while the man held her. Willa shouldn't have stopped. She'd already spent so much. But something about the woman's tears made her pause. "Is everything okay?" Willa asked gently. The woman looked up, mascara smudged. "We're getting married next week. Just a small ceremony, nothing fancy, but we ordered our wedding cake and the bakery just called. They went out of business. No cake, no refund. It's stupid to cry over a cake." "But it's not stupid," Willa said firmly. "What kind of cake did you want?" "Vanilla with raspberry filling," the woman said. 3 tiers. We saved for 8 months. She laughed bitterly. "We lost $600. Willa looked at the bakery they were standing in front of, Sweet Mandy B's, a Chicago institution. Through the window, she could see beautiful cakes in the display case. "Come inside with me," Willa said. 10 minutes later, she'd ordered a 3-tier vanilla cake with raspberry filling, decorated with fresh flowers, to be delivered to the Holy Name Cathedral next Saturday. Cost $650. The couple stared at her like she'd grown wings. "Why?" the man whispered. "You don't even know us." Willa thought about the question. About Mrs. Chun and the veteran and the homeless children and her own babies sleeping in a warm car for the first time in months. About how Sebastian had chosen her, a stranger, for reasons she still didn't understand. "Because someone showed me kindness today," Willa said. "And maybe that's how it works. Maybe we're all supposed to pass it on. Maybe that's the only thing that matters." She left before they could thank her again, before she started crying in front of Emma and Lucas, who were watching her with wide, curious eyes. "Mommy, why did you buy them a cake?" Emma asked. "Because everybody deserves sweetness, baby, especially on the happiest day of their lives." At exactly 6 o'clock, Willa pulled into the grocery store parking lot, where this impossible day had started. The snow was falling harder now, coating Chicago in white. Emma and Lucas were asleep in the back seat again, exhausted from their adventure. Sebastian was waiting, leaning against a black Mercedes, his expensive coat dusted with snow. When he saw her, something in his expression shifted. Surprise, maybe, that she'd actually returned. Willa got out of her car carefully, not wanting to wake the children. She walked across the parking lot, her old boots crunching in the snow, and stood before this strange billionaire who'd given her a glimpse of a different life. 24 hours, she said quietly, pulling the card from her pocket. As promised. Sebastian took the card, but he didn't look at it. He was looking at her, his gray eyes searching her face. "Thank you for returning it. Did you think I wouldn't? I hoped you would. I wasn't sure." He paused. "What did you buy?" Willa almost laughed. "Is this the part where you judge me? Where you tell me I should have spent more or less or differently?" "No," Sebastian said, and his voice was softer than she'd expected. "This is the part where I'm genuinely curious what you decided mattered most." So Willa told him. About Mrs. Chen's electric bill and the veteran's debt. About the winter coats for homeless children and the wedding cake for strangers. About her rent and her car and her children's shoes and the inhaler that kept Lucas breathing. Sebastian listened without interrupting, his expression unreadable. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "You spent less than $15,000, he said finally. "You had unlimited credit and 24 hours, and you spent less than $15,000. Most of it on other people." Willa shrugged, suddenly defensive. "I spent what we needed, what felt right. You didn't buy yourself anything. Not really. Everything was for your children or for strangers." "That's what mothers do," Willa said simply. Sebastian looked at her, and Willa saw something in his face that startled her. Something that looked like pain. "You didn't buy a purse or jewelry or designer clothes. You didn't book a vacation or go to an expensive restaurant. You didn't even—" He stopped, shaking his head. "I'm sorry. I'm being rude. I've spent years watching people take and take and take. Watching everyone with their hand out, ready to grab whatever they can carry. And you—" "I'm not special," Willa interrupted. "I'm just tired. And I've been poor long enough to know that money doesn't fix everything. It makes breathing easier for a while." Sebastian pulled out his phone. "I need to show you something. The transactions. I had them monitored." Willa's stomach dropped. "Monitored?" "I needed to know if the card was stolen or misused. Standard security." "But look." He held out his phone. Willa stared at the transaction list on Sebastian's phone, seeing her day itemized in dollars and cents. Each purchase a small choice that had felt enormous in the moment. He scrolled through slowly, letting her see how little she'd spent compared to what she could have. "You returned the card with 99.8% of the available credit and used," Sebastian said quietly. "Do you know what most people did in my previous experiments? They maxed out the card in the first 3 hours. Designer clothes, cars they didn't need, jewelry, vacations. One person spent $40,000 at a casino." "You've done this before?" Willa asked. "Twice. Both times I was disappointed." He pocketed his phone. "But you restored something I thought was broken." "What?" "My faith in people." Willa felt tears threatening. "I should go. My kids are in the car, and it's cold. And, wait." Sebastian's voice was urgent. "There's one transaction that confused me. You were at Northwestern Memorial Hospital for 37 minutes. But there's no charge. You didn't buy anything. Why?" The world tilted. Willa's carefully constructed composure crumbled. "That's not your business. You stood in front of a hospital with unlimited money and walked away empty-handed, after spending the day helping everyone else. Why?" "Because I'm not worth it." The words exploded out of Willa before she could stop them. "Because if I spend your money on myself, on tests and scans and treatments that might not even work, that's tens of thousands of dollars that could feed hungry kids or keep someone warm or give my children a future after I'm—" She stopped, clapping her hand over her mouth. But it was too late. Sebastian's face went white. "After your what?" Willa turned away, looking at her car where Emma and Lucas slept peacefully, safe and warm in their new coats. "I'm sick. I've been sick for months. And I can't afford to find out how bad it is because even if I could pay for the tests, I definitely can't pay for whatever comes after. And I have 2 kids who need me, who need every dollar I can save for them, who need to know that even if their mom is gone, they'll be okay." She was crying now, the words spilling out like a dam breaking. "I spent your money on what mattered, on people who could be saved, on futures that aren't already over. I bought my kids 3 months of rent and a reliable car and winter coats, and when I'm gone, at least they'll have that. At least I'll know I did something right." Sebastian stood frozen, his expression devastated. "How long have you known?" "Long enough. And you didn't tell anyone? You didn't ask for help." "Who would I ask?" Willa laughed bitterly. "I'm a single mother with no insurance and no savings. This is America. People like me die quietly." Sebastian Stewart had built an empire on algorithms and logic, on problems with quantifiable solutions. but standing in a snowy parking lot watching Willa Morgan cry. This fierce, selfless woman who'd spent his money on everyone but herself. He encountered a problem he couldn't calculate his way through. He'd spent years believing the worst in people, building walls, trusting no one. And this stranger, given unlimited resources, had chosen to save others while accepting her own death as inevitable. "What's the name of your doctor?" Sebastian asked, his voice rough. "It doesn't matter. What is the name?" "Dr. Reeves at Northwestern." "But Sebastian, I can't." "You can." He was already on his phone. "And you will. I'm calling him right now. It's after 6. He won't answer." Sebastian pulled out his wallet, extracted a business card, and made a call. 30 seconds later, he had Dr. Reeves on the line. "This is Sebastian Stewart. I'm calling about a patient of yours, Willa Morgan. I need you to schedule every test, every scan, every consultation she needs, starting tomorrow morning. Money is not a concern. I'll handle all costs directly. Yes, I'm aware of HIPAA. No, I'm not family. I'm a friend. Tomorrow morning, first appointment. Thank you." He hung up. Willa was staring at him like he'd lost his mind. "I can't let you do this," she whispered. "You can't stop me." Sebastian's voice cracked. "You spent 24 hours showing me what goodness looks like. Real goodness, not the performative charity I see at galas where billionaires donate for tax breaks and photo ops. You helped a veteran, an elderly neighbor, and homeless children and complete strangers getting married. You put your own kids' future ahead of your own survival. And you think I'm going to just walk away? I don't even know you. You know me better than people I've known for 20 years. He stepped closer, his voice breaking. "You know what you taught me today? That wealth isn't about how much money you have. It's about how much love you can give. And you, Willa Morgan, are the richest person I've ever met." Willa sobbed, covering her face. "My kids need college funds. They need someone to take care of them if I die. They need their mother," Sebastian interrupted firmly. "And I'm going to make sure they have her. All medical expenses covered. A trust fund for both children's education. A job at my company with full health benefits if you want it. Whatever you need. But you have to fight. You have to try." "Why?" Willa looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. "Why would you do this for us?" Sebastian thought about all the people who'd used him, betrayed him, taken and taken until he'd had nothing left to give. And then he thought about Willa, who'd been given everything and had chosen to give it away. "Because you gave me my humanity back," he said simply. "And that's worth more than all the money in the world. Because you showed me that some people, good people, real people, still exist. Because your children deserve their mother, and the world deserves to have you in it." Willa stood in the snow, this exhausted warrior who'd fought every battle alone, and finally let herself break. She collapsed against her car, sobbing so hard her whole body shook. Sebastian didn't try to comfort her with empty words. He simply stood there, bearing witness to her pain, until she could breathe again. "What if the treatment doesn't work?" she finally whispered, her voice hoarse. "Then at least you'll know you tried. At least Emma and Lucas will know their mother fought for them, not just sacrificed for them." Sebastian's voice was gentle but firm. "You've spent your whole life making sure everyone else was okay. Let someone take care of you for once." Willa looked through the car window at her sleeping children. Emma's mouth was slightly open, her new winter coat bunched under her chin. Lucas still clutched his dinosaur, even in sleep. They were her whole world, her reason for breathing. "If I do this," she said slowly, "if I accept your help, I need you to promise me something. Anything. If the treatment fails, if I don't make it, the trust fund for my kids, it still happens. They still get taken care of. They still get their education, their future. This isn't about saving me. It's about saving them." Sebastian's eyes filled with tears he didn't bother to hide. "You're still putting them first. Even now. I'm their mother. That's what we do." Willa straightened, wiping her face. "But yes, if you're serious about this, I'll fight. I'll do the treatments. I'll try. For them. And for yourself." Sebastian insisted. Willa managed a small smile. Maybe eventually I'll believe I'm worth saving too. Sebastian pulled out his phone again. Dr. Reeves is expecting you at 8 tomorrow morning. I'm having a car service pick you up at 7:30. And Willa? Your mother is invited to every appointment. You don't go through this alone anymore. Fresh tears spilled down Willa's cheeks. But these were different. These carried something that felt dangerously close to hope. 6 months later, Sebastian stood in the backyard of a modest house in Oak Park, watching Emma and Lucas chase each other through the grass, their laughter echoing in the warm summer air. Willa sat on the porch swing, her hair grown back in soft curls after the chemotherapy, her face fuller, her eyes bright. Stage 3 cancer, aggressive treatment, surgery, radiation, chemo. She'd survived all of it. You're staring, Willa called out, smiling at him. Just making sure you're real, Sebastian replied, walking over. Sometimes I still can't believe any of this happened. A billionaire gave me his credit card in a grocery store parking lot. I'm pretty sure we both lost our minds that day. She patted the swing beside her. Sit. Tell me about your day. Sebastian had changed too. He'd started a foundation focused on helping families like Willa's, single parents facing medical crises. He'd restructured his company to prioritize ethical practices and employee welfare. He'd reconnected with the parts of himself he'd thought were dead. I gave away another credit card today, he admitted, to a homeless veteran. 24 hours. Same experiment. Willa laughed. And he bought food for his dog first, then paid to stay in a motel for a week so he could shower and look presentable for job interviews. Spent $400 total. Returned the card with a thank you note. Sebastian shook his head in wonder. You started something, Willa. You showed me that most people, when given a chance, will choose kindness. Not most people. Just the ones who understand what it's like to have nothing. Emma ran up to the porch, breathless and grinning. Mr. Sebastian, Lucas says dinosaurs could beat dragons in a fight. Tell him that's wrong. I'm not getting involved in that debate, Sebastian said seriously. That's between siblings and historians. Emma giggled and ran back to her brother. Willa watched them with an expression of such profound love that Sebastian felt it in his chest. Thank you, she said quietly, for everything, for believing I was worth saving, for giving my kids their mother back. You saved yourself, Sebastian replied. I just gave you the means. You did the fighting. We did it together. Willa looked at him, her hazel eyes clear and certain. You know what the most valuable thing you gave me wasn't the medical treatment or the trust fund or even this house? What? Hope. You gave me hope. You reminded me that good things can still happen, even to people like me. Even when everything feels impossible. She reached over and squeezed his hand. That's the real gift. That's what changed everything. Sebastian looked at this remarkable woman who'd taught him that humanity wasn't rotten. It was just wounded. That wealth wasn't measured in bank accounts but in the love we give and the lives we touch. That sometimes the bravest thing we can do is accept help when we need it. I was wrong about everything, he said. Before I met you, I thought people were all takers, all users. But you proved that even in our darkest moments, even when we have nothing, some of us still choose to give, still choose kindness, still choose love. And you proved that some rich people have actual hearts, Willa teased gently. So I guess we both learned something. They sat together in comfortable silence, watching Emma and Lucas play, the summer sun warm on their faces. A billionaire who'd lost his faith in humanity. A single mother who'd lost everything but her capacity for love. Two strangers brought together by a black credit card and 24 hours that changed both their lives forever. So, Willa said eventually, when are you giving away the next card? Sebastian smiled. Next week. There's a teacher in Detroit who's been buying school supplies with her own salary. I figure she deserves 24 hours of not having to choose between feeding her students' minds and feeding herself. You're doing good work. We're doing good work, Sebastian corrected. You're the director of the foundation, remember? Your story is the reason any of this exists. Willa leaned her head on his shoulder, a gesture of friendship and trust that still amazed Sebastian every time. Then let's make sure we help as many people as we can. Let's prove that kindness isn't dead, that humanity is worth believing in. Deal, Sebastian said softly. In the backyard, Emma and Lucas decided dinosaurs and dragons should be friends instead of enemies. They played together in the grass, two children who would grow up knowing their mother had fought for them, knowing a stranger had become family, knowing that sometimes, when the world feels cruel and impossible, extraordinary kindness can appear in a grocery store parking lot on a snowy evening. And sometimes, that kindness changes everything.